Yeah, I think I started watching a little bit before around the time Alex started doing calls with you, because I definitely remember when Alex started, and I remember watching that process and just being kind of impressed, seeing him going from someone who didn't really know that much about a Dhamma to, really becoming well developed. So yeah, and I guess another one of the other main reason I called is because I guess I just had questions about like how to handle certain things, in part regarding the temple that I've been visiting. Um, I'm just like unclear on how to handle certain things, I guess, and how to handle
Let me
myself
take
there.
5 seconds. I need to stop dogs growling at one another.
Okay.
All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all I was saying. Was like I was just calling because I felt like it felt appropriate at this time to go ahead and do that. I felt like, well, I've been meditating for a little while now, and I've I've been kind of wanting to actually have some sort of person to actually talk with about it, and
Okay.
yeah,
Yes. Dhamma is for sharing.
yeah, definitely. And I've noticed that like if I talk with people about it that, don't participate or something like that, it's just like sometimes difficult to have those conversations.
Well, that's especially true in places like Tulsa. At least that would be my memory.
Tulsa's a wild town for sure.
There's a whole lot of dissatisfied, unhappy people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that they think that if they can make other people follow their rules so that they don't have to follow them themselves, then they will be powerful and happy.
Right.
That in fact, I know quite a lot about that culture, and that it seems to be actually worse now than it was before. But the important point is to be able to see the dangers therein and start to avoid those situations, not only in the sense of going along with them, but rather also to get away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Better thing to do. And so I'm really pleased that you've gotten established a bit in Taiwan. I didn't think about it until you mentioned that there's a Taiwan in Tulsa, but also you mentioned that all of the Asians within probably quite a distance are collecting together.
Yeah.
Vietnam, and all of that. Well, that's very typical throughout the United States. That whatever borders or boundaries were there on the terrain of Asia get melted into the Asian Buddhist culture of America. And there it is, a bright, shining, happy, wholesome system of about 500 watts that the Westerners don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
And they would never consider it. And possibly the reason for that is language as well as culture. And so I'm really pleased that you were capable of making that leap. And so that would be really an advantage. I'm looking guys who have spent some time in Asian wats to help promote it within the wider community of our groups on Skype.
Mm-hmm.
So you've gotten that information. I invite you to join our group. That what most Western Buddhists miss would be, let's look at it from the perspective of the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. Their Dhamma is badly translated. They haven't seen a Buddha in hundreds of years, and they don't even know what Sangha is.
Uh-huh.
And so what we need to do is to reintroduce it as the triple gem, that in fact, when the Dhamma is correctly understood, there's the Buddha right there. And then the question is, where is the Sangha that they don't even know that exists in the West? Don't even know about it. But in fact, not long ago, someone was saying that I would like to be a student of yours, but I disagree with your politics. Wait a minute. The whole teaching is stop having politics.
Mm.
You could get out to the idea that Sangha is actually not political.
Right.
Or a commune that people would live in, like a wat, is not political. That in fact, any politics that are in the wat is actually getting there by mistake out of the minds of the people who came to be in a place where there was no politics.
Right.
Kind of they brought it in with them. But the whole idea is that we can find this Sangha, this friendship, this companionship with the people who know and understand the Dhamma is already in the West. And if we can get guys interested all over to start spending more time at the Wat and less time in Reddit, that it would be greatly to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
To meet some people. You see, it's very rarely, even for people who go on retreats, it's very rarely and unlikely for them to meet and be around people who were born Buddhist. Almost all the Western people will be getting introduced to Buddhism from adulthood, mainly because they're trying to take a bath from whatever they were taught before.
Mm-hmm.
They call it recovering.
Right.
And so that's where most Buddhists are people who are looking for something because whatever they had isn't good enough.
Mm.
Well, if they listen to the teachings of the Buddha correctly, they'll hear it as like, yeah, that's right. Look at the fact that you keep seeing things are not good enough. That Christianity is okay, except that everybody who's in it thinks it's not good enough. It needs to be fixed. It needs to get political. It needs to get not political. It needs to raise money. It needs to stop talking about money. There's just and so Christianity winds up being more of a punching bag than an actual method where people can come together in communion, come together in sanctuary. The very things that they want are actually mentioned as the qualities of the religion, and yet the people who come into religion bring their old stuff with them. The really clear example of that happened in the time of Ashoka, which I mentioned before, is because he wanted to spread the teachings of the Buddha around. He actually promoted it a way that big money would promote anything, in the sense of inviting people to change what religion that you have. He would give free robes. He'd give hotels or monasteries or something like that for the monks. Gave them the equipment, the tools and things that they needed and whatnot like that. And so in the area around Rajgir, they had so many monks, that was the capital city at the time, that the nobles, the old guard, those who actually knew the teachings of the Buddha, saw that things had gotten out of hand because the students didn't have a teacher. So they taught each other. And so this was the great time when all the magic beliefs and all of the Hinduism and all of that stuff started to infiltrate into the teachings of the Buddha. It's also the time when the Great Divide happened. The original group called for a meeting, called for a grand council, and that they wanted only nobles there. And so King Ashoka says, fine, I'll support it in the capital. Bad idea. They should have had that council way out in the sticks, way out in the woods. But because it was a grand affair in the city, all of the monks who didn't get into the council were unhappy. So they decided they'd have a Mahasangha, a Maha. And that was the beginning of Mahayana Buddhism, was that there was this split in at that time, but it was a split of jealousy of knowledge. And so the question would be, well, how do you would know whether you got into that group or not?
Mm-hmm.
How would nobles recognize nobles? Right? The answer to that is that if you are, they say it takes one to know one.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain questions to be asked. And if you answer those questions in Hindu words, then you're not invited in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so there's various ways of telling, but what had happened is that it got separated not within the division of necessarily Mahayana and Sebastian, Theravada, whatever the words for. The real issue was the breakage in the Sangha between the nobles, which in the original Sangha, everybody was coming in to become noble. It was a noble organization. Now it became two. It became an organization within an organization. The real Sangha is not the Sangha of monks, or it's not even the Sangha of lay people, but the real Sangha is the Sangha of nobles.
Mm-hmm.
They got hidden away and kept safe and secure and all of that, because there was some pretty bad times that happened in India.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also got dispersed into China, Thailand, Western Asia, and in fact, it got quite into Pakistan, but and onwards that way. But when Islam came back, they pretty much destroyed Buddhism right into India.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get into Burma, but they might try. But in any case, the Western Buddhism we have came completely differently. Buddhism was brought to the West by treasure hunters, not by nobles.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, Western has always had that treasure hunter mentality. With the Christians talking about bowing and scraping and praying to a stone statue and all of that kind of stuff, it's just coming out of their understanding of it, as well as all of the bad understandings of the actual teachings of the Buddha, which was Christian to begin with. That's why words like dukkha are translated as suffering.
Right.
Why would they translate it? That's a fairly bad translation, in fact. Imagine that you were a Jehovah's Witness kind of Buddhist going around with your tracts, knocking on doors and saying, here, read this and it will free you from suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And Nobody will say, forget it. I'm not suffering. Nobody would admit to suffering. Nobody is suffering.
Mm.
But we are quite often dissatisfied.
Right.
Quite often. And when we're around other people who are dissatisfied, then we take on their dissatisfactions also. And so when we're little kids and we're having parents that are dissatisfied, they're going to pass that dissatisfaction down to us. It's almost like a mental virus that they give us. That really little.
Can I ask you how does that work? Like, because I have noticed that a lot, where I'll see other people dissatisfied with something, and I almost mirror it or copy it, or
Mm-hmm. Well, you could call it in instinctual language, it would be imprinting.
Okay.
Okay. In common language, we would say monkey see, monkey do. Moms will often ask their kids, well, why are you going to do it? Because he did it. If your friend stuck his head in the oven, would you stick your head in the oven too? Have you ever
Yeah.
heard that? That's the one. Ah, so that's it. That's the answer to your question.
Got it.
Why do we follow our instincts? It's
Right.
another way of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we can take that down a little bit into actually the nesting instinct. Why? Because if you don't get along with the nest is going to throw you out, and the nest may be quite dangerous if you're not in it.
Mm-hmm.
Either an insider or an outsider. And so we long with that intensity of instinctual, your survival depends upon your ability to get along with others. And so we wind up getting along with the wrong people, doing things that we're told to do rather than doing what we want to do. And so we resent it. I have never met a student ever who actually claimed that they really liked first grade. Sit down, read your book, do your ABCs, do your 1, 2, 3s. Very few children actually enjoy the first grade. And those who are best prepared for the first grade are the ones who were most miserable in the first grade. So, in that regard, you can say that from childhood, we are not only born as a victim, but we are taught that we are a victim
Mm-hmm.
and that you have to go along to get along.
Right.
This is what makes a politician, is to get powerful enough so that you can make changes to the things so that you can get your way. Because we never think that we ever get it our own way. And the Buddhist teaching is to stop having your way. That's the problem, is either getting your way or not getting your way is a problem. So just start getting along happily is the better way of looking at it rather than getting along and resenting it.
Mm.
Do what you want to do and do it happily rather than doing it because you were told to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically the answer to that question. And in fact, we've gone quite deeply into Paticca Samuppada in that regard, that we wind up being in that woeful state of being an animal, a dumb animal that does what it's told to do, because the dumb animal becomes a dumb animal because he'll do things that he doesn't want to do to stay in the. Also, besides being a nesting instinct, you could call it the herding instinct
Mm.
or the herd mentality. You could also call it the mob mentality.
Sure.
And so this is one of the things then to start waking up to. is recognizing that you're doing something that you don't want to do. So you can set it down, take a deep breath, and say, "Wow, I don't have to do that right now. Let me get to a really, really good state, and then I might want to do it while I'm feeling good. But right now, I don't want to do it. Look how I'm feeling." So this is actually quite an important point, this issue of why do we go along? Monkey see, monkey do, imprinting, is because we're doing it ignorantly. We're letting it be done by the automatic pilot right down to our gene level instead of acting wisely. The whole teaching of the Buddha is to wake up and take a look at these instincts. To wake up and take a look at these unwholesome thoughts that come out of these instincts. To wake up and recognize that we are already built in with a victim's attitude that was instinctual. It was instinctual when we were born, and it was then pounded into us by the society, giving a few people a great longing to get out. But they're wrong in the sense that they think that they can become prime minister or chief or something, and then to be getting their way instead of in a situation of being subordinate to someone else and doing what you're told to do. What they don't recognize is that everybody, even the guy in charge, is just going along to get along. Everybody, I mean, Dante's pyramid, if you've seen it, you have all of these human bodies climbing up, and the guy who's on the top, guess what's happening with him? He's got 6 arms grabbing him by the feet, pulling him back down so that one of the other guys can get on.
Right.
So even the guy in charge doesn't get his way.
Right.
Okay. But there's another way of looking at it, and that is that if you can see clearly what's going on, instead of wanting what you want, you'll begin to want the right things because you know that you can get them. But this is wisdom, is learning to figure out how to aim our ambitions rather than keeping shooting ourselves in the foot. Or another way of saying it is see how things are headed. We don't know where that bullet's going to land, but you can sure see which direction their barrel is pointed.
Right.
You don't know when the gun's going to go off, but you know that you don't want to be standing in front of that gun when it does. So this then is getting back to the issue of the Eightfold Noble Path and how the 3 gems are wrapped up in there. Because we are societal animals. The Buddha has in fact got one sutta. The funny part is the name of the sutta is the Half Sutta.
I haven't heard of that one.
Well, the Half Sutta is where Ananda approaches the Buddha after having a long talk with with Sariputta, and Ananda announces to the Buddha that friendship is half the Dhamma.
Oh, okay.
And the Buddha corrected him. He says, "Oh no, friendship is the Dhamma. That's all we've got. That's the only thing that there is. Is 100% of the Dhamma is friendship." Now, where people get the half and half stuff is the natural division that we make between the inside and the outside. Dealings with the people that you're living with and all the people that are around you, that's one half. Those on the outside. But the more important one is becoming friends with the ones on the inside. The crowd that we have within have to be brought into unison, or within the context of the samadhi mind, to get the mind together. to become whole,
Mm-hmm.
become unified. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to stop having the war inside. Because what happens with us as children is that not only do we get told what to do, we remember what we're told to do. And then we go around with all of these remembrance of all of these rules and things that we're told to do. This is what the Buddha calls Sila Bhatta Paramasa, and what Eric Berne calls the parent ego state, and what Freud called the superego. So this superego, this parent ego state, this collection of rules is also registering in the mid-cortex of the brain, called the temporal lobe, the middle part, as opposed to the problem-solving machine that humans have that the other animals don't have, as well as a huge cerebellum in the back. That's the way that we do our reasoning. And we spend most of our time not in reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
but in the back of the brain, the reptilian brain, the anterior cortex, rather than the frontal cortex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The way of saying it is that we spend so much of our time in instinctual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of saying it is that we spend so much of our time doing what we feel to do, that we are driven by the feelings that are instinctual, our automatic pilot. Automatic pilots are great to save the pilot a lot of extra work. You know, on a big aircraft, an airliner, there's an automatic pilot. But that automatic pilot, you can't use it on takeoffs and landings. You can't do it when you're heading into a mountain or in a storm. You got to take control, right? And so this is what we're actually practicing doing is for the pilot, the frontal cortex, is to take control of this craft instead of having it on automatic pilot, the instinct. And so this whole quality of friendship then is that we need to get this automatic pilot functioning correctly because it's at war with itself.
Right.
Right? Because we've got all of these rules and regulations that are often contradictory and that they're not according to what we want to do anyway. So the idea is that, oh, I'm going to go on a diet. And then I'm firmly on a diet. And then I get in front of the refrigerator and open the door, and where's the diet? Now the diet is guilty, okay? Because we're a crowd and we change back and forth. And
right.
That, in fact, one of the signs of a unified mind is confusion, because we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another one, is a sign of a mind that's not unified, is when we lie. When we lie to ourselves, when we lie to other people, that's a disunity. And lying is something that we do to enemies, not to our friends.
Mm.
Okay? So if we're lying to ourselves about our religion or our beliefs or our political views or any of that kind of stuff, then lying means that we're not looking at the evidence that's right in front of us.
Right.
We've already made a predetermined position, no matter how wrongly it fits with reality.
Yeah.
So this is what the teachings of the Buddha is keep remembering to wake up and look at what's real. Right now, what's real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not what's real in a big sense, but what's real in the sense of our senses. Okay, let's come to our senses. That's a very interesting word. I love it. Think about that. Coming to our senses means getting out of the noggin and getting into sensual awareness in the here now, into the present moment.
The heat of the moment.
Ah, but where's the heat coming from? Wake up and recognize that we're the heat. We're making things hot.
Yeah.
And then we can keep them off. We can take it off the heat. We can take it off the grinder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We thought we were polishing it, and all we're doing is making sparks.
Right.
So that's the idea then of ānāpānasati, is to come out of the unwholesome thoughts, the heat of the moment, and come into the reality is that there's no reason for me to be making heat right now.
Right.
That I can cool off instead.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that's what Dhamma means, is chill, baby, chill.
You said pana?
Nibbana.
Nibbana. Oh, right. Yeah.
Or if you want to use it that way, we can put an R in it, nirvana. Nirvana. Just chill, baby. Just
Mm-hmm.
chill out.
Mm-hmm.
Cool off. In the physical context of the body, relax the body. Relax the body, cool the heart, and keep, let us say, watchful to keep that system going by breathing. We understand the body itself, and by understanding the body, we can relax. By gladdening the mind, we can change the attitude of the mind as well as change how we feel. But we have to do it over and over and over and over. It's very repetitive. Why? Because we've been repeating doing things that we were told and resenting it over and over and over again. Instead of enjoying what we're doing, we resent what we're doing. That's why we call it a job. That's why we call it work. We could call it employment. We could call it time off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we don't. We call it work. We try, etc., like that, because
Right.
we're not enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
We could be satisfied instead.
Yeah.
But because we have spent so much time being dissatisfied, working, wanting things that are off into the future, that habit needs to be modified and changed many, 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 many times. Okay? Just a little bit at a time. We keep changing it, keep changing it, keep changing it. And pretty soon we begin to change that attitude from the loser's attitude into the winner's attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to be satisfied, and I can be satisfied again. I know how to do it. So that's the whole idea of ānāpānasati, is to become friends with oneself. And then we practice that with others. There's a whole language that we have, like metta, karuna, mudita, upeka. How are we going to handle things with others? Are we going to be friends? Are we going to be political? Are we going to be enemies? So the whole teachings of the Buddha is all about making friends. First on the inside, normally in seclusion, and then we open it a little bit to allow other nobles in so that we can really cement this thing. And then after we're associating with nobles and know what really high class humanity really is, then we can go out and share it with others.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus had an expression like, don't feed your pearls to the swine.
Mm-hmm.
That means that for a while we keep our nobility to ourselves,
Right.
because to be understood anyway. But we can't share it. And in fact, we want to become available to those who are noble. This is why it's such a good idea to start going to these Thai wats
Yeah.
and Asian wats throughout the United States. That in fact, the Lao, the Cambodian, and especially the Vietnamese wats were established by refugees from the war. And they came in the 80s. But the Thais were already there, because when the flyboys left, with their new brides, they went back to the military bases, and that's where all the Thai wats sprung up. So the Thai were springing up really early by 1980 through that range of time, 80s, 90s, to where the Asians were, the refugees were into the Reagan administration, deep into the Reagan administration, when finally there was enough pressure was put on the United States to bring these millions of refugees in. So a lot of them started rolling in 1986 in that time period. And nothing much happened with them because they had it set up that Christian churches would take a group of Asians under their wing and become fosters, representatives, or something like that. And so it took 5 to 10 years for the Asians to break away from that, so that they could go away from that Christianity and reestablish their Buddhist temples. And so there was new influx in the middle 90s through the up until now of people wanting to build the other Asian wats, the Lao, the Cambodian, and the Vietnamese. And so that's how all of that got started in the United States. But only to a lesser degree in other Western countries. That Buddhism is now out sprouted. There's been a wat in Mexico City for more than 20 years. And so this is the place where Westerners are going to find that Sangha of getting around people who have been Buddhists from birth. Go eat delicious food. Discuss Dhamma. Have fun. Being in a wholesome environment. This is one of the things that would happen. And over time, the idea then is that with your establishment there and staying around the Asian people and gaining some value, sometime you can make an idea, or maybe somebody there will have the idea of, why don't we do a meditation an hour or two every week, meeting for the Westerners done in English language.
Yeah.
And that's how then the Western community in general in Tulsa can find out that the wat exist.
Yeah.
Now is not the time to invite other people. Now is the time for you to go get yourself all mentally cleaned up and polished and everything.
Yeah.
And the place to go do that is at the wat. Also, I would invite you to join us on the Skype Sanghas, because we've got some friends here, and many of them are experimenting with going to wats. In fact, about 5 of them want to come to the wats here in Thailand. But Matt's been to the wats in Tampa and Orlando, and Scott's been to the wat, and Keyshawn has met a good monk in Chicago, and everything is really beginning to perk up. Everything's beginning to bubble up, and that kind of stuff. So you're into this at the right time. And so come and become friends with our group of Sangha, and call me, and we can talk about any questions that you have about the Dhamma or whatever. But it sounds like that you're having quite a lot of fun on your own, and I had to praise that. Congratulations, Mike.
I've been enjoying it. Yeah. I will say, so I'm not even sure how to pose this question exactly, but like for me, and part of this has actually come from listening to Buddhadāsa. He had this one talk called No Religion. I'm sure you've maybe heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I've really been sort of feeling that way lately, and like,
Well,
yeah, I
that
don't
book
know.
is chock-a-block. What way are you talking about?
Well, just that, you know, that essentially they're like, there is a Dhamma, there is a truth, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily like exist because of the Buddha or because of Jesus or because of, you know, uh, any religion or whatever. It's just that like, there's kind of like, um,
Truth
uh,
is truth. Is that human
right,
capable of seeing things the way that they really are?
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
The Buddha actually said that he did not invent or make anything, that he
Mm-hmm.
merely discovered an old path.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the whole quality of what is called a teacher Buddha, which are those who became, without talking or teaching, that it's a natural experience. An example of that would be in modern times Eckhart Tolle, who
Mm-hmm.
just got tired of the mess that he was making and just sat down on the park bench for a couple of years. And then
Right.
when people started asking him a bunch of questions, he didn't have any answers to them. So he started reading Buddhist books so he would have Buddhist answers.
Right. Right.
So this is another example, Dan. And actually, I've had conversations with Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa about Jesus,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially with all the detailed knowledge that we have been digging up about when and who and how Buddhism was transmitted to the Mediterranean area,
Mm-hmm.
including Alexandria with the Therapeutae, and who was Socrates, and look at the Stoics, and where did they get all of that stuff?
Right. Right.
You have
Right.
the Essenes and the Essenes, and that are all doing ritualized water bathing, which is very typical of. In fact, there's a whole lot of stuff about watering holes and bathing areas, and you see so many combinations. Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa keeps the position of yes, but we don't know, and that just like it was in India at whatever
Dhammarato, you're breaking up a little bit. Could you maybe move the mic closer? Thank you very much.
okay, all right. Um, so a Bhikkhu Buddhadāsa's position is that the Dhamma is the Dhamma, and it will be, let us say, identified and understood by those who do and will speak their own native language.
Right.
In fact, in one of the suttas, 139, the Buddha talks about that in the sense of how to teach the Dhamma is that you have to teach it in the language of the student.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're using new language, you have to introduce the words slowly so that they will understand the words rather than piling a bunch of foreign language words on it or other things like this. And so the question that you're asking is there, in the sense that I hear a lot of noise.
Are you hearing noise from me? You sound fine on my end.
Oh, okay. I turned my microphone off and the noise stopped. And yet, there the wind is again.
I wonder if it's maybe your headphones. Maybe your headphones aren't plugged in properly. That's the only thing I can think of.
No,
If
actually, this mic is not associated with the headphone connections on this PC. It's a different
okay,
plug.
sure.
Uh, As soon as I'm quiet, the noise comes back up. So that means that this
Weird.
is Skype.
Yeah.
Skype is having that noise. I'll have to take a look at the Skype connection. Yes, as soon as that's okay. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I'm going and doing the auto settings, audio. That's very interesting. Something's wrong with the microphone now. I'm beginning to get it. Yeah, I've got quite a problem here.
Oh, okay.
Very, very noisy.
Okay.
Well, now it seems to be better. I changed several things, and let's see what happens now.
Okay.
Actually, this is the microphone that I'm using now. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds perfectly fine.
Okay. So, actually, though, I don't know what to do about it. So anyway, I can't even hear. All I've got is the roar in the ears. Is it possibly coming from your end?
Yeah, I can mute.
Yeah, right now that was it. It wasn't here at all. It was on your end. A lot of noise. Turn your microphone back on now.
Do you hear it now?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wiggled the
come
cable
back.
on my microphone a little bit. That might have helped.
Yeah, it's a roar that increases in volume the longer you're silent. Okay, but right now I can hear it.
Okay. Okay, cool. All
right, now the noise comes in again. What you did, now it's off. Now it's on again. Getting louder. Now it's off. Now it's on again.
Here, let me mess with my mic for a second. One sec. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, but also when you turn the mic on, the noise started up again. So your mic is catching a lot of noise. And it's very late into our talk when that started to happening, so I don't know what's...
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, honestly. Are you still hearing it, I'm guessing?
Well, when one of us is talking, the noise stops. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
And it starts up in the gaps. And when we let it roll, it gets really loud.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and I've lost my thread with all of this.
That's okay.
I know where we were going with it, because we were covering the general point about the triple gem, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, which has to do with getting one's mind cleaned out and making friends with it within one's own mind, and then the Sangha of the other side of the friendship of dealing with others in a friendly way rather than in a political way.
Mm-hmm.
So we come into a state of satisfaction and then deal with others from a state of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically how it works. And there's a whole process to do that. It's called the Eightfold Noble Path, which I guess we can talk about later, as well as how it fits into ānāpānasati.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we finish now?
Okay.
And you go and practice basically what we've been talking about, because
Sure.
you've been listening to so many of the videos anyway. I think you kind of know what's going on. So I hope to hear from you again soon.
Yeah, of
and
course.
we can go over it all again, as well as get you invited to join the various Sangha groups.
Yeah.
It'd be good to see you on Friday evenings on the U.S. Sangha.
I think the main one I can join is the, I think it's Wednesday UK call. I'm off on that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you, Dhammarato. I'm excited for our next talk.
Okay. Well, we'll see you later.
See you later.